Hi, Noon from Sound Particles here, and welcome to one more video of how to program a synth. Of course, in here we are using our synthesizer SkyDust, but what you learn here, you can apply this to any kind of synthesizer. So we have talked about envelope generators, we talk about filters. Now let's talk about combining filters with envelope generators. But before going there, there is one additional thing that I want to talk with you, and that is that when you talk about filters, especially with synthesis, there is two different behaviors that you may desire. So let's come here. I have here the basic sine wave. Okay, let's change this to a square. Okay, let's put a filter everywhere, and now let's put something here. Okay, so as you've seen, you have the filters, okay, over here. So but now there are two different kind of behaviors that you can have with filters, and that depends if you want the filter to be static independently of the note that you are playing, or if you want the filter to adapt to the note that you are playing. What are the differences? Well, the difference is that if the filter is fixed, almost like having an equalizer after the sound of the synthesizer with some kind of filter, this could be interesting, especially if you want to create this kind of formants kind of sound. So it's always the frequencies over there, which means that if you play a lower note, much more harmonics gets passed through the filter. If you play a very high note, what is going to happen is that you're going to have only the fundamental, and most harmonics are going away very fast. So sometimes you want the filter to be static, like a formant kind of things. Sometimes you want the filter to adapt to the note that you are playing. For instance, in here, okay, you want almost like the filter, okay, I want like the first three harmonics to pass without problems, and then it's the fourth that starts to attenuate. But of course, if we play a higher note and if you continue to have, you want the first three harmonics to keep there and then attenuates from there, of course, the frequency needs to change. So, for instance, that's in case of sound particles, you have this keyboard mapping. So if you leave it like this, unchecked, the filter is fixed. It doesn't matter if you're playing. Okay, so now if you activate this keyboard mapping, what happens now is that the filter adapts to the note that you are playing. So if I'm playing a middle C, it's going to apply these settings that you see on screen. If I play one octave below, it's going to, the frequency, it's not going to be this frequency, it's going to be one octave below of this frequency. So in here you have this key mapping. If you activate this and put the slider on the maximum value, the filter will completely adapt to the things that you are doing. Sometimes so, as you can see, here is a high note, so the filter moves to the front and still allows the sound to be reproduced only with a few harmonics going down. If I disable this, it goes back to the previous, this around 1 kilohertz position, which means that it's going to attenuate much more things. So once again, just a remark about this kind of feature regarding filters. Nonetheless, let's talk about envelope generators. So the idea with envelope generators, as you can see, we know that the filter can shape the sound. Okay, so you can say, I want more harmonics, less harmonics. But then we know that with envelope generators, you can change things through time and say, okay, for instance, we've seen how to control, of course, the gain, and you want the sound to increase and then attacks and then decays and then sustains and then on release goes back. But now imagine if you could use the envelope generator to control the filter and doing some interesting things with the filter and say, no, I want on the attack the filter to be fully open, show me, give me all the harmonics, all the brightness, but then after decay, I want the filter to start decrease the frequency of the filter, which means that I'm going to start attenuating much more harmonics and you get a more mellow kind of sound during sustain. So the idea of having an envelope generator with the filter is this, is be able to change the settings of the filter as you move on. So in this case, what I'm going to do is imagine that I want, and most of the times when people use filters with envelope generators, usually what happens is that you want a more bright kind of sound during the attack, because it's like the attack is when the hammers play against the string on the piano or other things like that, when you pluck the note on the guitar or anything like those. And essentially, usually what we want is a much more bright kind of sound on the beginning, and then slightly reduce the filter to get a more mellow, sustained kind of sound. So what I'm going to do here is, okay, I'm going to enable the envelope generator. Of course, being SkyDust, you can select multiple envelope generators here. Let's use the typical DSR. Okay, so what we have here, well, going to have a starting position of the filter. Okay, so imagine that I want to, at 0, at the beginning of the note, the filter to be completely closed. Okay, so I'm going to have a low-pass filter with completely closed frequency. Then on attack, when it reaches the attack, I want the filter to be completely open to get the full brightness of everything. And then on sustain, to keep something in between. Okay, so I do something like this. Okay, let's have, how long do you want these attacks to go? So imagine something like this. So what happens is, okay, I have a slow attack, wow, the filter opens up, and then on decay goes very fast decay. Of course, I can control also the decay timing here. So what we are doing is controlling how we want the filter. Imagine that you say, no, I want the filter to continue completely open. So let's put sustain. And sustain keeps there completely open there. Or say, no, I want sustain also to completely close everything over there. Or you say, no, this is what is the sustain level of the filter, sustain frequency, something like this. So, okay. Or imagine that you say, no, I want this to be completely slow opening of the filter, and I play something. Okay. So a lot of things that you can do. Of course, you can do something completely opposite of this and start the filter open and then close it and then open again, and you get a different. Okay, so it's up to you how you want to sculpt the sound, but envelope generator will allow you to do this. Depending on the synth, of course, in this, as you can see, typically the envelope generator, the simple one, simply have the attack time, decay time, sustain, and release. Okay, considering that starts at 0, goes to the maximum value. So the only value that you have on these simple envelope generators, it's the sustain level. Everything else, it's the timing information. In filters, depending on the synth, you could have something like that. Okay, which pretty much it's almost like having this completely open. Close the filter, then completely open, and then on release completely close once again. Okay, but all of this is a matter for you to decide what you want to do. Okay, so if you go to your synthesizer and your synthesizer doesn't have as many knobs as this, it's pretty much the same thing. Okay, of course, having more knobs allow you to be more flexibility to change what you want. So you want something like this. Okay, or imagine once again the release. Imagine that you say, no, but I want the release to go to open the filter. Okay, in this case, of course, I would need something much more faster. Okay, and in here, of course, I will need to get much more release to be able to listen to the okay, so unreleasing. Okay, so once again, a lot of ideas that you can do with envelope generators and using filters. Filters are great. If you want changing the filters through time, you can do the same thing with envelope generators connecting with filters. In the case of SkyDust, on the filter tab, you have already the envelope generator here ready to be used, connected with the filters. In some synthesizers, you have the filter envelope generator also completely independent. In some other synthesizers, you have a generic, a few, 2, 3, 4, how many are independent, and then you need to say, no, I want these to control the frequency, the filter, so you probably need one more connection there and say, okay, almost like modular synth, say, now I want this to control the filter. Nonetheless, envelope generators and filters are a very powerful combination. Once again, in here, my goal is to show always these very basic things with one single oscillator, with a very basic waveform, for you to understand more or less all of these steps that we are going to tell. Next video, we're going to talk about LFOs and how can we use LFOs, in particular to control pitch, to get this kind of vibratos kind of sound. So see you on the next session.